Hello everyone, GM. Welcome back to another episode of Overpriced JPEGs. It is time for your Friday recap and a moment of Zeneca. So we are joined here today by the one and only Zeneca and by Gavin Purcell, aka Bonky Donk on Twitter. How you guys doing?
Can't complain. Yeah.
Pretty, not bad. I'm excited for a Barbenheimer. That seems like exciting.
Yeah.
So jealous. So I was just talking to get a completely off topic, but talking to Jamie, my friend, who's tomorrow is doing the double features, like Barbie, dinner, and then watching Oppenheimer. And like, I don't think I'll get a chance to do that for a while because we're traveling soon. I'm very jealous.
Yeah,
we're watching Oppenheimer. We got tickets like a month and a half ago for the biggest screen in the world, Lincoln Center, 70 millimeter. It's like the screen that Christopher Nolan, bros love them some Christopher Nolan, and my soon-to-be husband qualifies in that camp. So he was like on this. So we have quite the Oppenheimer experience coming up, and then I'll definitely watch the Barbie movie. So I'm excited for that. We did actually talk about it a little bit in the episode of Blockbuster that is going to air next week. We did a little Barbenheimer talk with the one and only John Rogers. Okay, a quick admin note before we dive in. We, of course, have our upcoming event in Los Angeles on July 25th with the Cool Cats team. I almost said Dead Fellas. Like, all this switching around is just frying my brain. So July 25th, Tuesday, come hang out with us at Danvers Gallery. You can go to opjtour.com to go get your tickets and learn more. And with that, let's hear a word from our lovely sponsors who make this show possible, and then we'll get into today's news. Y'all know the phrase, not your keys, not your crypto. Well, in a world where too many people have had to learn that the hard way, Overpriced JPEGs is proud to partner with Ledger, the world leader in critical digital asset security. Ledger's Nano S Plus and Nano X hardware wallets, paired with the Ledger Live app, Ledger's own software for setting up your Nano device and managing your crypto assets, is the easiest way to start your crypto journey while maintaining full control of your digital assets. You can use all your favorite dApps with Ledger Live, accessing 15 plus Web3 apps, including 1inch, Paraswap, Lido, and Zerion. So you can not only manage, but also grow your portfolio. And Ledger Live is available on mobile and desktop. Securing digital assets shouldn't be complicated. Ledger is as easy as it gets. Uncompromising security, effortless connectivity, full transparency, Ledger is your one-stop shop to trade and track crypto, grow your assets, and manage NFTs. Secure your future with Ledger. Visit shop.ledger.com today or check out the link in the show notes. I am so excited to announce that this year, Overpriced JPEGs has partnered with OPENSEA, the world's leading NFT marketplace, built for everyone, creators, collectors, noobs, and experts alike. I'm an OpenSea user because they have the best selection of NFTs and a truly inclusive view of the ecosystem, supporting 8 chains and 8 global languages. I trust the systems they've put in place to keep the space safe, like copy mint protection, malicious URL detection and removal, robust verification, and more. It's why they are the place to buy, sell, and create NFTs. That's right. You know OpenSea, you use OpenSea, but did you know that OpenSea now has drops? New exclusive projects launch every week from top projects and creators, and you can check them out now using the link in the show notes. They also recently introduced self-serve drops, which is in beta, and allows creators to launch their projects right on OpenSea. This drops product gives creators access to tools like rich storytelling drop pages, multi-chain support, and drop mechanic customization. The full launch for self-serve drops is coming this spring. So check out the upcoming drops on OpenSea right now using the link in the show notes and own what moves you. You'll also be supporting the show in the process. Let's start what we always do, guys. Vibes check? Is it even worth vibes checking anymore? Like, there's just like, it feels like there just aren't even vibes to check.
I mean, yeah, it's market wide, I think, is just the same, right? Things are bleeding and dwindling and stuff like that. But people are finding some way to have fun. I mean, ThreadGuy and
That's true.
Opepen, like, we'll get to that later, I'm sure. But like, it's the same old, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like that people are like distracting themselves with like little games because they know everything else is so bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're just like finding stupid shit to glom onto because there's not like a bigger picture thing to really champion at the moment.
Exactly. I it's funny we were talking about this. So I think the one thing that's interesting to point out vibes wise is that we talked about, I think maybe last week, that Azuki seemed like it was kind of like picking back up a little bit. Azuki has dropped off a cliff a little bit again, which is down in a significant way.
60 NFTs got jumped into a blur bid.
Yeah, which
66 Azukis.
Which
so
was pretty,
yeah,
exactly. Which was pretty much like, it was like, maybe not a dead cat bounce, but it wasn't great for where Azuki sits. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it was clear that a lot of stuff was going on with Blur and all the bidding there. The other thing I would say is really weird that's happening literally right now as we're recording this is that Pentoshi is a pretty big crypto Twitter personality, has dropped a 10,000 project at a 0.2 mint of penguins that are facing forward. So instead of pudgy penguins, which might be facing this way, these are penguins that are facing forward. And
big distinction.
Yes, big distinction. And it just feels like kind of clueless and like really out of sorts. And, you know, I think it's at like 2,000 if minted out of 10,000 right now. But 0.2 for a project that it just doesn't feel right. And so like part of me is like, we said this before in this podcast, but like, what is going on? Can people not? I mean, we just talked before we started. The three of us, I think, are all adults. We all believe that like we kind of have an understanding of this space. We all kind of feel like we know the right thing to do. Why do people keep doing these things? And then more than that, like, why are people minting these things, right?
It's gambling.
Yes.
We're going to talk about Rollbit, but
you're right.
It really is just people want the hit.
Yeah.
I'm looking now because I had seen some news about this, but it just happened, so I hadn't actually seen the penguins. I mean, they do look different than pudgies.
Yeah, I mean, they're still cute. The art's not terrible. I don't think it's bad.
No, actually, it's kind of cute.
Yeah, I mean, but the question is, what does that mean now, right? I mean, the other thing to follow up, Pentoshi did tease a game, and they showed a game, and then I saw somebody else's tweet, which was like, oh, this is an off-the-shelf game that you can just drop something on, right? So, like, it's like, and there's some involvement supposedly of Merit Circle, which, if you remember, was a kind of a big investment group that was behind the NFT called Eden Horde at one point.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
So it's like, I don't know. It just feels, that doesn't make me feel good about the space. I'll say that.
Wait, so and you said, did they mint out at 0.2?
No. It's like at 2,200 or something like that right now. Out of 10.
Okay, but still.
It's 500 ETH they've raised.
500 ETH.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's some real money.
I know.
God, people are. It's so interesting. I was gonna say it's a crypto funks vibes with just the switched side, except for that it actually looks. It's sufficiently different from pudgies, in my opinion. What were you gonna say, Zen?
Yeah, I mean, Gavin and I were talking just before about this and how they raise funds. And like, we have our PFPs coming out at Zen Academy next month, and like we're doing it for free. We're giving it to our community. But like, there's this massive temptation to be like, should we? Why didn't we do a pay? We probably could raise a few hundred ETH or 1,000 ETH, but it just feels
totally
weird.
could.
Yeah, in this market. So, but it's also like it's the pressure that if you do a paid mint, then people expect stuff and.
I know.
Yeah.
And you have integrity. Well, it reminds me of the song that I still listen to just because it's a bop. The stop sending fucking money randomly to assholes. Stop sending.
I've never heard this, but it sounds great.
You haven't heard this?
Jonathan Mann.
Zeneca.
Right? That's
Jonathan Mann.
Yeah.
Song a Day Man.
I love
Oh my God,
him.
it's Song a Day Man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stop sending fucking money randomly to assholes. Stop sending fucking money randomly to assholes. Stop sending fucking money, your fucking money. Stop sending fucking money, your fucking money. People say crypto's a scam and you all prove them right. Or the shadow part of money is not just out in the light. Either way, I'm disappointed and I'm feeling fucking sick. Cause the talented are starving while the idiots get rich. So stop sending fucking money, your fucking money.
That's pretty good.
So good.
Yeah.
It's so good. I love this song. I played it once. I was playing it once, and Zach, my fiance, who again pays attention to none of this, was like, "What are you listening to? That's a good song." I was like, he's like, "That's like fun." I was like, "I know, it's actually just such a bop." But there's a line that's the talented are starving while the idiots get rich, and it's that. It's like people who are like actually talented and have integrity, like don't want to just like farm people for every last dollar they have, and then I mean, whatever. It's okay. So just a couple of like quick hits here at the top as we're talking about vibes. I would say Ether NFTs, which had been, one of the projects that dropped during this era that had some level of attention, are down pretty bad. They dropped the royalties from 7.5% to 3.5%. All of it feels like that's a thing still. You know what they're not being honored places, I assume. So I don't even really know that I understand the point of any of that. But they did announce that, but it hasn't seemed to help because the price has just been tanking.
Zen, were you the one that wrote about the fact that this Ether mint feels like the end of an era?
Yes.
Like that. Yeah. So that was a really cool post, but I think you should talk about that a little bit because I think you're right.
So basically, Ether announced their project a year ago, and tremendous hype, and like, everyone wanted to be on the allow list, and it was great. And then, it took them a year to get from announcement to launch, and like the market obviously significantly changed, and people started digging into more about like the team and what they're promising and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, they minted out. I mean, they had to cut supply and they had made all these pivots, but they did sell out and raised like 1,000-ish ETH, which up until the Penguin project, I was like, we're probably not going to see this again, or like much more of this at least. Like the 2021 model where we would have so many projects launch 10K, 0.08 min price, sell out, bang. It really does. Again, did until the Penguin project, feel like the market is maturing to like not just throw money randomly at projects just for the sake of a flashy roadmap or a dream or a vision and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think largely, I think that is still correct. Like there will still obviously be random projects that do mint out and take off, but I think it's like this demarcation of like this moment in time where, all right, before it used to happen a lot, then it happened a bit, and now it's going to like very, very rarely, if ever, happen anymore. And it's a good thing to me. It's like it shows that the market is maturing and the people left want to know what they're buying ahead of time, to know why they're buying it, and to just have more understanding of it and not just throw money at random non-teams hoping and praying that
randomly
things go crazy.
to assholes.
Exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's a good take. I mean, and God, I hope you're right, to be honest. Like,
I hope I
don't
am
know,
too.
no.
I'm not super optimistic. It's a lot of hopium, but yeah.
Our generation, or like this generation, like I talked
What
about
does
this
that
with Ben
mean?
Mesrick.
Our generation. Am I out of that conversation?
No, I said our. You're aging yourself.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
You thought I was excluding you, which was a projection. I was including all of us. But yes, technically speaking, you are a different generation.
Okay,
Yeah, what can I
fair
say? But I talked about this with Ben Mesrick a little bit because he covers this stuff. He being the author who wrote about the Winklevoss twins and The Social Network, wrote the book that The Social Network was based on. Like, this isn't going to end. Like, our generation is not interested in like plopping a bunch of money in some sort of 401k or index fund and just like riding it for the next 30 years while they, have their 9 to 5. Like, that's just like, we want to gamble. And there's always going to be a segment of the population, and it'll rise and fall in terms of how many people it is, but like who want to gamble on these things. And so this is never going away, in my opinion. It's just like, how much does it grow or shrink over the years, I think. And so that's when we talk about this Penguin thing, that's what it is they're looking at somebody who has almost 1 million followers promoting a project, and they buy it because they're like, maybe somebody else is going to come in and buy this after I've seen it. And I think and it sometimes feels so arbitrary what narratives do take off. Like, for all you know, that the Penguin project, some weird thing, some weird meme comes or happens, and suddenly the thing is pumping.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
I mean, I would not be surprised to see it tomorrow.
Been the right bet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was going to joke about that. You almost bought one, Gavin. You're shitting on it. But when we asked you this morning if you were going to buy one, you're like, I don't want to buy it.
I had a thought on this, and this goes exactly to your point, which is, I would not be at all surprised tomorrow to see these things, which are under mint right now, they're at 0.18, to have a 0.5 floor. And I think this is the weirdness of the world we live in. And actually, I do want to follow up on what you said, because I think it's really insightful, is this idea that generationally we've moved from this kind of like slow investment strategy when you think about like what people were like 401ks, all this stuff. And I think part of it is like the hustle culture, the entrepreneurial culture. And it was actually like, you think about The Social Network, like, part of it was driven by those narratives of people like Mark Zuckerberg, who was
100%.
20 years old and got very wealthy very fast. And so now, instead of seeing the pretty boring version of getting rich, which is like put money away.
The Warren Buffett version of getting rich.
Yes. Now you've seen a number of people do it fast. So, and by the way, I'm not to say like maybe it's not wrong, because in some ways the entrepreneurial life is like you have to keep taking shots, and there's that whole narrative of like, well, look, I went into debt and got out. That is maybe just part of the way we're living life now, is a different sort of vibe. Now, I don't know if that's good for the generational world or if it's bad. Probably it's not great, but also
probably bad.
That's how the world is working now in a much different way.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about it with a friend just the other day. I think it started with the Zuckerbergs. It started with these entrepreneurs, but then it's Logan Paul, right? It's watching these influencers who live their entire lives on social media start to get wealth and flash all of that wealth on social media and YouTube and whatever all the time. And it's a bunch of 20-year-olds 20-year-olds who are millionaires, and it gives you a very skewed perspective of like where you realistically should or can be at 20, 21, 23, 25, 28, like all, you know, and so it's definitely fucked us up.
That reminds me, there's a great Gary Vee TikTok I saw, which was basically if you take the 1% of wealth, the people who are the highest earners in the entire world, at the bottom of that 1%, that person's making $400,000, right? Which when you think about like what that looks like just in terms of numbers, and when people envision like the idea of $1 million, $5 million, like those people are like the very, very, very peak. But to your
They're
point,
the 1% of 1%.
yes, exactly. But to your point, that's exactly what you're talking about, right? Yeah.
That's what you see. Yeah, I used to talk about that with the Bernie Sanders stuff. Bernie being from my home state of Vermont, and he'd be always like the 1%. I'm like, it's really like the top of the 1%.
Yes.
Because not that $400,000 isn't a ton of money, but if you live in a major city and have kids,
exactly.
It's not like you're not like living so large in New York City with 2 kids on $400,000 a year to be, you know, which is crazy.
An apartment is like $1 million and all sorts of other stuff.
Right, of course. Yeah.
Sorry, so the other thing on this is obviously like everyone's seen the TikTok, the ice cream so good, yum yum videos going crazy. The amount of money people are throwing at people on the internet is wild. And so we think the NFT space was ridiculous. And it is. All these JPEGs. Yeah, exactly. It's like...
Should we just all do our own version of it right now? Maybe we get a bunch more viewers. Rodeo! Dylan, you can put a little cowboy hat on me for the edit. That'll be fun.
Oh my God. Yeah, it just shows how people will just throw their money at the most random things on the internet. And so it's not surprising that NFT projects mint out. It's not surprising that the Bens of the world just got so much money thrown at them. And it's not surprising that TikTok stars or any creators are making tons of money because for whatever reason, people have a desire to just throw money at stuff on the internet.
Yeah. Which, as we're saying that, is quite bullish for NFTs long term.
It is.
Oh, yeah,
you know,
sure.
like as these creators have things they can issue, like this is all positive for this space overall. We're just in this strange lull moment. And of course, there's the broader question of like, is this good for humanity? But that's with all things. All innovation, I feel like, brings bring that question. Okay, so getting back, I was going to do quick hits. I had said put some quick hits on things, and of course we got on this tangent. But Ether NFTs are down, maybe an end of an era. You've got Vivi, you've got all the Jack Butcher stuff is up. Of course, we're going to talk about the Opepen thing as a bigger story in just a minute here. And speaking of somebody who knows how to capitalize on attention, capture attention. I mean, Jack is masterful at that. He's artist and performance artist in some ways, whether he identifies himself that way or not. And we'll get into that in a minute. So that is one bright spot in the market, is you've got a little bit of pumping happening there. Doodles had a cool announcement. They had announced previously, of course, that they have this partnership with Camp, which we've talked about on the show a number of times. It's this experiential retail experience, these stores that have these one-offs all around the country. They are partnering with them, but they just announced that their event or that their retail location will be in Chicago and opening on August 19th, which is cool. John Rogers and I dive into that a lot more for next week's Blockbuster episode, so I don't want to talk about it too much here, but just wanted to flag that announcement because I think it's bullish for Doodles. And then Ape Fest announced it is going to be in Hong Kong. That's, again, older news, but we missed it. That news came out right after we recorded last week. Are any of you guys going? Zen,
I'm tempted.
You have Ape Fest?
So like it's November 3rd to 5th. There's a conference in Amsterdam, Met Amsterdam, November 1st to the 3rd, which I'm speaking at. And so if I can finagle my way from one to the other, maybe I can catch a couple days in Hong Kong, but we'll see. It looks like it's going to be cool. And it's like, I think they said it's a very different type of event. It's not like a big party with headliners and things like that. It's a little more of like exploring the city and taking part in like more like networking and actually hanging out with people and having conversations, which is it's my kind of event.
AKA cheaper probably as well, I would imagine.
Yes.
It's a nice way to say we have less money to spend.
Yeah.
I think they framed it like it's a celebration of the community and the city.
Yeah.
And I'm sure part of this is networking is not the right word. Like everybody's pivoting to the Asian market. All these projects are like, hey, Asia, like us. Right. You know what I mean? Like, y'all seem to have money. And when you think about even just globally where luxury spending is happening, it's primarily Asia. It's a lot of Korea. It's definitely a strategic move on their part. Okay, let's get into a couple of stories. One, when we talk about the market today and vibes, the Gen Art space, as always, continues to be a bright spot. It should be surprising to no one anymore. Zeneca's pumping his fist because he has been talking about this literally
2
since
years.
2021. Yeah, for a very long time. And I'll start with this. Are you tracking this Prohibition.Art launch, either of you?
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
So it uses the Art Blocks engine.
Oh, yes.
But it's on Arbitrum.
Yes.
And so they launched, I guess, this week, or I think July 18th.
Yeah, a
was
couple
like
days ago.
Yeah, where they have these like initial 11 artists that they partnered with, and they're going to do a drop by that artist every day. The idea is that this should be a more accessible version of generative art. Their first drop was with Emily
Edelman, I think.
Yes.
Yes,
yeah,
she
Edelman.
did one of my favorite Art Blocks collections.
She was
the
in Art
Zeneca.
Blocks.
Yeah, with a couple others.
Yeah. Yeah, she did an Art Blocks curated collection. She's super talented. And so they did that one, minted out very quickly. It was like a 0.05 mint. Again, like an accessible price point for a really loved generative artist. And it sold out very quickly. I think it was up at like 0.45, almost half an ETH at one point. I think it's down a little bit now, maybe. But it's super cool. I was actually playing around on it this morning. They did an Ed Balloons drop that came
That's cool.
out
That's great.
yesterday, I believe, or today. Yeah, Ed Balloons, super cool. And there's still some left of that one, so I think I'm going to go pick one up. I was waiting for my ETH to transfer from mainnet to Arbitrum, which again, we're like this high-tech space, and then it's like 15, please wait 15 minutes for you to be able to like use your ETH on Arbitrum, and then I had to hop in here and do other shit, and so I didn't end up getting to spend the ETH. I'd moved to Arbitrum, but anyway, so it's super cool. So 11 artists over the course of the next, ongoing for the next couple of weeks. And I think somebody involved in it was saying, Jordan Lyle was saying like the goal is to bring like the art spirit of Tezos to Arbitrum.
Oh, that's very cool.
I
missed
that.
the original Tezos vibes. Like that was such a cool time, like John and all that stuff. Like that was a really fun time in NFTs and
Yes.
whatever that crazy website was.
Hickek, Tunk.
Yeah.
Hickek, Nunkt. Yeah, I can never say it.
Yeah.
FX Hash, though.
Yeah,
Interestingly,
Yeah,
FX Hash
FX
is now coming to Ethereum as well. Oh, I think they already have,
interesting.
or they've
Oh, really?
announced it. So they're kind of doing the same thing, but now for ETH. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, so I think it's a cool idea, and I have to say, like, I haven't spent much time doing stuff on Arbitrum, but my jokes aside about the 15-minute waiting period, like it was pretty easy to navigate.
Yeah.
Relative to like when I've tried to do things on Polygon. No offense, love Polygon, but it's that's been funky for me at times. So anyways, I think that's really cool. The other thing is you have Christie's Art and Tech Summit happening right now in New York City. So it kicked off yesterday. I think today's the second day of it. It's only a 2-day event. But lots of cool speakers. I mean, lots of blockchain speakers. Snowfro's there, obviously. Kevin Rose is there. Tyler Hobbs. I mean, a lot of the big generative artists are there as well. These art houses continue to embrace it. Like you're still having, you had Sotheby's auction, I guess last week, and you had punks being sold on there, and you had was there another Fidenza in the Sotheby's auction last week? I can't remember. Oh no, I think there was like some Sear Light, who I love Sear Light's work.
I love Sear Light.
Centauri
Yeah.
Alpha Kit. I love Sear Light. Oh, it's so good.
I think something about this is so interesting to me, and I think sometimes you have to take a step back and just look at how humanity is changing. I know that sounds like a big, broad conversation, but like this is only going to become more and more digital art, right? Like as people grow into the idea of what an artist is or what it means to be an artist, digital art is just going to be more and more a percentage of the kind of art that's built. So these companies, like they're smart. They're just trying to look out for their future. We're entering a world where, like, an average 8 to 10-year-old now is not drawing as much. Like my kids like draw, but they're all on their iPads and they're all using Procreate. They're all learning these tools earlier. So that is the future of this stuff. So I think it's super smart for all these like old school museums and companies to really be leaning in, because I think they're just looking at their audience in some ways.
Totally. I just get overwhelmed. Like my art blocks always, it always felt a little expensive for the stuff that like clearly was, good and grails. And then I just get overwhelmed trying to figure out what the other stuff. I mean, of course I burned how much money on PFPs and definitely would have been better off just putting all of that into art at this point, even if it didn't end up being the best quote unquote art. And so, that's where it's a little tricky, but like, that's why I'm having fun with this Prohibition art place, because it does feel like accessible price points. It's not like And who knows, who knows what happens to this stuff in the future as all of this gets bigger. So it's very cool.
It's interesting. The art gallery owners are like the original influencers in some ways, right? Because that's an idea that like they used to bring stuff to people, and now like you have to listen to other people about this stuff. But it's that sort of thing. Tracking
like the why art becomes valuable is such an interesting journey, because it's so much of it's valuable because certain people say it's valuable and it's rare and it's like it's got this meaning, and then it's all narratives, right? Humans all it's memes all the way down, but like it's like that narrative is democratizing in this space as well, where obviously a lot of it is driven by the people that were in the space early and the people who said, oh, punks are valuable and art blocks and squiggles and stuff like that, but it's still way more egalitarian now than like a handful of gallery owners and curators basically driving a large percentage of the narrative and the sales and the value like it used to be.
Yeah. I mean, look, in some ways it feels like there's more autonomy. You can make it happen for yourself. And I always hesitate to say that, and that, but like in the sense that like learn certain social media tools, right? Get really good on these social media tools and you can break through and your art can break through. And again, especially in this space, Jack Butcher is being a prime example of somebody who has known how to play the narrative and get his work seen as an artist. Let me introduce you to a brand new company that I could not be more excited about, Web3 Sense. A Web3 analytics platform that combines on-chain data with social media insights to give you the deepest, most meaningful intelligence into any NFT community. I have tested other analytics platforms out there, but Web3 Sense has the most comprehensive capabilities I've seen in the NFT ecosystem. They apply sophisticated data science to wallet histories to determine behavioral patterns and help shape predictive analytics. In other words, they can tell you which Twitter accounts are actually the influencers in your space. And they can tell you what resonates most within a community by looking at what other communities token holders are involved in. The number of use cases here is virtually unlimited. So whether you're a trader, creator, institution, brand, agency, I promise Web3 Sense has data that you want to see with the deep and actionable insights that you need to build, analyze, grow, start, whatever you want to do within the NFT space and in terms of building a business and a community. Now, they are still in very early days, so they're eager to connect with the community. So if you're interested in learning more about what Web3 Sense can do for you and your business, and you should be, go and fill out the very short form linked to in the show notes, and someone from their team will reach out with more information and an opportunity for a product demo. Trust me, you won't regret it. Which actually segues us beautifully to this next story. Yeah. Really, the main story in NFTs this week somehow is...
It's unbelievable to me that an influencer story is the main story. That's how bored we all are right now.
I know. But it's true. So you've got ThreadGuy. The ThreadGuy, I don't even want to call it a saga. Look, this is kind of a positive story to me. Like in the realm of like influencer bullshit that can be the primary story, when you think of like the Ben.eth stuff, or I could probably list 10,000, like this is kind of fun.
I love it.
So for anybody who missed it, the quick high level, and then I want to get y'all's thoughts. I know, Zen, you might be writing something about this, so ThreadGuy, probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest NFT influencer right now, has rocked his mutant ape profile picture for forever. He had applied to be on the Ape Council for ApeDAO and ended up not getting it, and that became a whole saga. And so seeing an opportunity, bored Elon on Twitter, sort of saw this opportunity of like, hey, apes don't really appreciate you. ThreadGuy, I think, was sort of the subtweet there. Come join the Opepen world. And so bored Elon offered ThreadGuy to trade him his like 001 super early edition Opepen for his mutant, with the assumption that he would maybe change his profile picture then to the Opepen, and it would get more eyeballs on the Opepen community. And ThreadGuy turned down that trade, and then just all of crypto Twitter broke loose. And then like suddenly it seemed like everyone was offering something to ThreadGuy. From the D-Gods was offering him something, Luca was offering him things, like it just went everywhere. And finally Jack Butcher prevailed when he launched this open edition, Infinity Open Edition Opepens in the color scheme as ThreadGuy's mutant, sold them for $2 and said all of the proceeds from the sales would go to ThreadGuy. And as of this recording, I don't know, it's something like 44, it was something, it's
close
like 44
to 100 grand raised. Yeah, 45,000. Yeah.
So almost like 100 grand, whatever. So,
there was sort of just an important, I think, timeline correction there where, so...
I think I have a timeline question in my brain that I've been asking JC on my team about a bunch, so I'm curious if this is what this is.
Okay, so basically, again, as I understand it, I haven't done comprehensive research yet, but basically, first, Board Elon offered the trade. It was a 20 ETH value Opepen for a 7 ETH mutant. And then other people started piling on, and then Board Elon said, I'll sweeten the deal. You don't even have to give me your mutant. Just, I'll just give this for you. You just have to use it as your PFP for 3 months. And then he still said no. And then Jack Butcher created this derivative Opepen with his colors. And then having rejected Board Elon and for everyone, ThreadGuy still changed his PFP. So he was getting no money. There was no expectation of profit. He just did it, quote unquote, for the culture. He said, you know what? This is cool. I'm going to do it. I don't want the money, for the culture. And then I believe Jack Butcher said, you know what? What a wonderful gesture. Well, let's launch this open mint. So if people want to support, you can mint for $2 and then you still get some money at the end of the day. I think that's how it happened.
So this was my question. I could not figure out for a little while, and there's sort of mixed accounts of it. Like, which came first in terms of the profile picture change and the open edition thing?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I think
this is like this grand mystery to me is like exactly the order of this. What you were saying there is that Jack made him this bespoke one and he changed it and then he did the open edition?
Believe so.
Or you're saying the open edition was happening but the money...
No,
okay.
I'm pretty sure he made it, he changed it, and then the open edition happened, but let's see if I can very quickly find out.
Yeah, good luck, because I've like actively been trying to figure out this exact question, and there's like different accounts depending on whose like tweet thread you read of this whole thing or Substack post. Like a Substack post said it the way you said it. There's a couple tweet threads that make it sound like the way I said it. Not that any of this particularly matters, but we do like to get our facts right here on Overpriced JPEGs. Okay, well, after some searching here that we cut out so you don't have to listen to us silently tapping on our computers, I don't think we have a perfect answer for you here. We're going to go with Zeneca because he's in front of me and I trust him. Point is, it doesn't matter. The bones of this story are what the bones of this story are and matter much more than the precise who, what, when.
Okay, so here's my question about this. And listen, I am a fan of ThreadGuy. I think that anybody who can like kind of raise the attention of the space, like somebody like him can, is an important thing. I'm not a giant fan of the voice he uses sometimes on his spaces or stuff like that, but that's okay. That's just maybe not my cup of tea. My big question here is, okay, so all this went down, and I understand we're all bored and we're playing around, it's fun, but like, so the money is going to ThreadGuy, right? Like the money from Jack Butcher's open edition. So part of me feels weird about this, right? This idea that like, okay, well, we just did this whole like kind of like magical adventure in terms of attention, and now everybody's giving money to this guy. Do you all feel that this is like people rewarding ThreadGuy for being a part of what he's done for the space, and so everybody feels comfortable minting? Or do you think that they think this open edition is going to go up, or how do people feel good about giving ThreadGuy $100,000 is my question? Or is ThreadGuy planning on donating it? Like, this is all the stuff I don't fully get about this saga.
My take is I'm sure there's some people who are thinking it's going to go up and buy it for that reason, and it was only $2, so whatever. I think the second thing is I do think it's like, hey, we want to reward ThreadGuy for all of his contributions to this ecosystem. I mean, being a Twitter influencer is an unpaid thing unless you're shilling things or taking endorsements or whatever. You know, he's an advisor apparently to Tally Labs, so presumably he draws a salary or draws some money from that. But I do think there was an element of like, we want to recognize this person who commits, whether you like his tone or not, a lot of time and energy
to the space,
to this ecosystem. Sure. And we want to reward that. And then it just becomes the fun also, like for the culture became the rallying cry for this whole thing. And so then there's just the moment of like, you're just buying into this cultural moment.
Okay. That's
Zeneca?
fair.
Yeah, that's largely what I was going to say. But breaking news. I DM'd Board Elon Musk and he said that ThreadGuy changed it in the morning to the PFP, and then Jack surprised him a few hours later by creating the open edition. So he was not...
So did it already exist?
Yeah, so I think Jack tweeted it out and was like, hey, for the culture, like, because I think people were just going crazy for a while with offering him things, and Jack just, put out a derivative like, hey, look, this is just cool. It's like just art. I just created art, put it on the timeline, I think. And then ThreadGuy saw it and said, you know what, I'm going to reject all these other offers for money. And I'm just going to change it for the culture,
which is pretty cool.
Which I think is really
very cool. Yeah.
And then Jack surprised him by this open edition saying, you know, if you want to support ThreadGuy, because he said no to all this money,
right.
$2. You can mint something for $2. And that is what I think is beautiful.
Much better than sending a bunch of money to Ben.eth with an expectation
so
that, you know what I mean? Like, ThreadGuy is a good person, has done stuff for the community, and we understand that. So, like, it's almost like a Kickstarter, I guess, then in some ways, right? Like, it's like, or like a Patreon. Like, it's a different version of a Patreon, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. And $2 is such a lovely price point, you know, where you're like, I can do that. You know, no matter how bad down bad the space is, like,
it's $0.0001 ETH or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think this is wonderful because it is difficult as a content creator in the space. And I think that's how I would classify ThreadGuy. He hosts spaces. He's turning up every day, creating content in one form or another to ethically generate revenue.
Yes.
I had a tweet on this a few days ago because if you're an artist in the space, you're generally applauded and supported and lifted up, and people say, yes, we should support artists. If you're a writer or a creator in a different way, often it's like you're shunned and shit. Like, people hate the idea of other creators profiting. And I think there's a very valid reason for this, is because of how high a percentage there are of shillfluencers and scammers and the Ben.eths and people who will dump. But it does kind of suck for the genuine people who turn up and like just try and contribute every single day. And they're like, well, all right, I want to do this and maybe make some money for contributing to the space. How can I do it? And I'm not sure that like there's been a really good way to do it yet. People might take an advisor role with the project, or they'll promote something and disclose it, and like that works, but it's kind of not ideal. And it's like, this is just this pure, and that's why I like it so much. It was very pure and organic, and a way for people who like ThreadGuy to support him. And I think that like if you look at it from it's weird to draw the parallel to like the TikTok ice cream thing, but like people for whatever reason were like, hey, this is cool, I like you, I'm gonna pay some amount of money for whatever. And that mindset, I think, is a good, healthy thing if it goes towards like decent, ethical creators like ThreadGuy is.
I think that changed my mind on a little bit. I mean, I think that's looking at it that way. I agree with you. Like, I do believe there's a real lack of ability for people to monetize outside of minting a project. And when you mint a project, as we all know, there are massive weights that get attached to you. So it'd be nice for something like this to happen more regularly. I mean, I think this is something that creators across the entire creator economy are trying to struggle with, like, how do you monetize this sort of thing?
And then the long tail of this, of course, is because it doesn't just end there, is then you have ThreadGuy tweet at Beeple, and like an hour or two later, you have Beeple's One A Day comes out, and it's a big old picture of the mutant Opepen, the ThreadGuy Opepen, and a bunch of people around it, and Beeple tweets it out for the culture, and now Beeple's in the story as well.
And sorry, go ahead.
Also, like, so many big, like OpenSea changed their profile picture to a Opepen in blue colors, and they changed their name to OPENSEA.
OPENSEA, which, to be fair, clever. You gotta do it. If you're OpenSea, you gotta do it.
That was well done. So, Rarible changed, like a lot of companies changed their PFPs.
Yeah, a bunch of companies got in on this, which I'm glad you said that, because it leads me to, it's very interesting to me that it was like radio silence from Yuga. Not that I guess, no, it's interesting. It feels to me like an example of the corporatization, and I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way, though I know some people in this space will take it that way, of Yuga. That like you have this cultural moment happening that in some ways they're connected to, because this all started with this mutant ape, and they don't say anything, participate, get in on the joke at all, is kind of striking, because I feel like in the old days, a year ago, 2 years ago, like they would have found a way to be at the center of this.
That's really interesting. Yeah, that seems like a huge miss, right? Like if your conversation is around community and trying to build that community, like that feels like a big miss for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think, just like you said, Carly, like 2 years ago in the early days, again, I wrote this thing a few weeks back the Bored Apes in the early days versus now. And I think that like the culture was so different then. And part of it was the community, but part of it was just for DGen founders just like doing random stuff. And they would have definitely jumped in on this. But now it's, like you said, corporatized and different. And perhaps because of who knows what reasons they decided not to jump on board with the whole thing.
Yeah, but that was definitely something that stood out to me, is I do think you watch the shifts that happen from like, even, you know, we're talking about Doodles, but we're talking about Doodles and their like collaboration with Camp. Like, you know, you're talking, they're more in some ways legit businesses, but that actually takes away from their ability to really participate in what the degens want and trade on in many ways, which is
it's almost like they should have two different sides of these businesses in some ways, like at least right now, until like they've proven out to something larger. But like I know there was a joke. Was ThreadGuy the one who was like hired as director of vibes for one of the companies? Like there was some.
I think it was Deez. Deez was director of vibes.
Yeah, but like there is a thing where a company like Yuga should have somebody like that. Do you know what I mean? Like they absolutely should, and maybe they do.
ThreadGuy would have been great.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the key to me is allowing somebody to make decisions autonomously. Like, I think that's what gets tricky, right? Is you start to corporatize, and for good reasons, because you don't want scandals, because you don't want to rugby, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want all these scams, whatever the reasons are. Like, suddenly the social media guy, who's probably the one tracking this, or woman, whatever, right? You get it? Who's tracking this has like two people they have to get a yes from before they can go and offer some big thing and offer an ape. And that's just what happens, is suddenly you have hierarchies, and that's a needed function of scaling, but it means you can't move nimbly anymore. And you can't suddenly just like have somebody go off and be like, we're going to offer this crazy thing in part, and so there's budgets, and there's
the perfect like counter example to this is DGods, I think. So like the DGods account is, I don't know who runs it. I think they refer to it as like the intern. It probably is Frank, but they refer to it as like, the intern or whoever is behind just doing random stuff. And the account is always out there engaging and just doing funny things. There's a really I mean they've done some really fun interactions over on Threads, but that's a whole other story.
Well, and it's also the 22-year-old founder who's running things versus the 50-year-old, sorry, I don't know how old Daniel is, but like CEO who ran Activision Blizzard, a public company, for the last 20 years, it all makes sense, let's say. Okay, speaking of just degenning and crazy and the shenanigans of the space, and really this next story is just the encapsulation of everything that's been coming to NFTs for a long time. Rollbit is really starting to poke through in a lot of different ways. It's got crazy volume and cash coming in. I think I have the numbers here. It was, I don't know exactly what this time frame is, but Rollbit rakes in $72 billion on 1,000 crypto futures.
That has to be volume though, not income, I think.
No, and then make $7 million plus in fees. Correct. So they've made $7 million in fees, but so much in an environment where like volume is down on NFTs, like, and it's just moved to the gambliest version. NFTs were already gambling, and then it's like, well, let's make it gamblier, and that is Rollbit. And folks may remember this was involved in when Franklin took his break. He had gotten apparently rugged or scammed out of like 2,000 ETH, something insane, but he had also lost 650 ETH in Rollbit, on Rollbit, like just gambling and doing shenanigans and whatever. So I mean, it's a crypto casino, but it's doing these crazy numbers. And I know Sam NFT Stats has been talking about it a bit. The Lucky Trader team has been reporting on it a lot. What do y'all think? Have you ever used it? I haven't. I'm tempted. Like I'm a gambler. We got a gambler. We got our resident gambler, our resident OPJ gambler. Honestly, like there's this part of my brain that's like, oh, can I successfully gamble? Like I would do sports betting. I would like, this is my world, and I think there is a world where you can do it successfully, but it's like, it's obviously high risk, but if you know that going in, you're an adult and can do it. But there's the whole ethical conundrum of like, is this something that it's just like, it's something I never really reconcile as a poker player. You go down and play poker, and then you're taking money from other people, and it's like, all right, it's all fun and games and it's fair, but then when one person is like a gambling addict, and you see that across the table, it's like, it's just a difficult situation to be in. And now it's easier when it's all online and it's just faceless unknowns out there. But and so I've thought about it. I haven't yet. I might check it out because it seems interesting, and I just want to see what it's like. And just, I think as it becomes a bigger part of the space,
there's probably a place to be creating content about how to be responsible and probably telling 99.9% of people, do not do this, don't trade leverage, don't do 1000x. But then is it just giving them more attention? And so I've thought a lot about it, but I haven't used it myself.
That's such an interesting point, because initially when you were saying like you feel bad you're taking money from other people, I'm like, well, refer to the point you just made, which is that you're adults and going into this. But then you add the next point was the one you're like, we've got people who are addicts who can't help themselves. You're sitting there with them. You can see that they're not really fully in control of their life around this, and and like I totally get that being kind of a moral conundrum. I'd never really thought about that before.
That's one thing that's really important to remember in this space, is that there's already a kind of an element of the crypto casino with NFTs or with crypto, and now we're just eliminating. We're just going to straight up gamble. Like there's a reason why you hear on podcasts that have sports betting those very long ads that have the end, which are like, if you have a gambling problem, it is an addiction. And this goes back to like the cultural thing we were talking about at the top of the show, where like you're in a culture where you're told that a 20-year-old is a billionaire, and you're in a culture where you're told that you can make a fortune overnight by looking at a TikTok. Those people think, oh, part of the way I can make this fortune is I can 10x my money in 3 bets and I'm good. That's a really scary place to mainstream. Now, that said, I like to gamble. I think that you have to have a mature mindset. The issue I always with this stuff is like, what does it look like for the like 15-year-old who suddenly is able to do this because he's in the middle of all that stuff? Like, and I don't think, obviously that's an edge case, but like more and more that's going to happen. You know what I mean? It's more and more is going to happen as this comes along.
And it does happen. Like one of my oldest and best friends has, I mean, I'm not going to say the name obviously, but it has had a gambling problem for 15 plus years. And, you know, I've been there along the way. I have an alcohol problem. I was addicted to alcohol. And so like I've been sober for 3.5 years now, but I know what being an addict is like. And I know that it's not as simple. Like if you're not an addict, it's very difficult to understand, but it can't just, you can't just not do the thing. It's like, your brain gets rewired and it's very difficult to fight against. And then when it's just, you're on social media and everyone's posting their wins, it's just like infinite like triggers to get you in. And so like it's this, but then again, at the same time, it's a free world and a free market, and we're all adults.
Yeah, of
and there's nothing wrong with giving people who want to gamble the ability, because you can gamble responsibly, and you can have fun with it, and you can make money, and you can put discretionary funds in and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a weird thing that exists in the world.
It's one of the things that are like, it's stripping away the illusion a little bit, right? Because I think all of us would be clear is that we've been gambling in some form for the last 2 years, right? Like this is some, and what the thing that kind of weirds me out about it is that like, oh, okay, you mean I am in a casino. I have been in a casino. I have to get my brain right about, oh wait, this is now we're talking about a literal casino, and like that's a slight different shift. And again, everybody has different relationships with gambling and thinks they have different things, but it's a trick. It's just one of those tricky things, right? It's like, just be aware of what it makes you feel like and be aware of where you end up. That's an important thing.
Yeah.
Well, the other reason I bring up the Rollbit story now is it was in the news because in the news, our news in our world, in our random Twitter corner, because it bought a gold pudgy, a gold skin pudgy for 69 ETH, which was the 5th highest pudgy sale of all time, except all the other higher pudgy sales were one of ones, and this is not a one of one. So it was an overpay. Let's just put it that way. They overpaid for this penguin, and it's because I guess they did some sort of like spin the wheel, win a gold skin pudgy thing, and somebody spun the wheel and won it. Rollbit didn't actually have the pudgy, so they needed to go out and buy it for the person, and so they went out, overpaid to get the penguin, and then whoever won this immediately listed it for 49. It was like, was it 49.69 ETH or 42.69 ETH? Yeah, whatever it was. And so anyway, funny.
That actually happened
in some ways.
I was on Wrecked Radio with OSF, Mando, and Keyboard Monkey like a week ago, and they're sponsored by Rollbit, and they do this thing at the end where they spin the wheel, and they had like Zen chests and 333 Club. Beforehand, they asked me like, can we, do you want to throw in for a giver? And I thought I would be like sending them one to, if someone wins one of these, we'll send them a Zen chest from my treasury. But then I saw the 333 clubs, and I was like, I didn't really agree to that because they're much higher floor, but I didn't say anything. And then someone won a Zen chest, and then like immediately after, bought by Rollbit on secondary, and I was like, oh, that's one way to go about it. I'm fine with that. That's So like I guess that's what they do. They just throw things in, and if someone wins it and they don't have one, they're like, oh, we'll just go buy some.
I mean, again, it's like a casino's a great business, right? Like, if you have a great business, like, and so like from a token perspective, it's actually not a bad bet if you expect this is going to keep going. Which the only question I have is legally where I don't know enough about the company to know like legally what sort of restrictions they have. Do you know, Zen? Where are they based at? Are they?
I have no idea.
Charlie?
I don't know, but I know you can't technically do Rollbit in the U.S.
Right. You have to VPN or
so
whatever.
You have to do VPN. I was on it at one point. You know, I didn't end up doing anything on it, but I was just like poking around it. And as soon as I didn't have a VPN on, and as soon as I got on there, they're like, you can't do this in your jurisdiction. I mean, it's a lot. It was the US, it's the UK. I mean, it's a lot of countries. I mean, again, obviously you just VPN and it doesn't matter, but it's it's technically not legal in the US. So
I mean, it matters if you
like
win,
the
I guess,
Bahamas.
right?
A Dutch Caribbean island, Curacao is where they're based.
Oh, nice. Curacao.
As you'd expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we gonna find a bunch of people on beanbags and having like weird
orgies
there? Yeah,
Harry Potter themed orgies in Curacao.
I'd put that out of my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And on that note, folks, have a great weekend. This has been Overpriced JPEGs. No, actually, that's our last story. I think
great.
I think we're out from here. Everyone, I will hopefully see you on Tuesday if you are in Los Angeles. It's our second to last Overpriced happy hour. At least our planned ones. Somebody wants to throw money for another one. Maybe we'll do number 7. Come find us. But yeah, awesome. We will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Overpriced JPEGs. If you liked this conversation, if you liked this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps me out, it helps the show out, and it means you will get alerts and updates when we post new content. Thanks again.